Avicii has been one of the biggest inspirations throughout my musical career, which is why today we're exploring how to produce a song like Avicii.
I feel it in my bones.
Now, this song idea really started on the keyboard after loading the giant piano from Contact, which is one of my favorite libraries. And yeah, that's when I started messing with playing chords and actually ran into the following chords that I really liked. Which have this melancholic feeling, which I felt was quite typical for an Avicii song, and that's mainly caused by the second chord. So the second chord was this one, and this sounds really unresolved, and that's because we're using this F sharp over here as our bass note rather than the more typical choice of D. Because if we were to use this D as the bass note, our progression would sound like this. But instead, we now go for. And as I was about to repeat these chords, I figured we need some variation, which is why the second time we repeat it, we actually end on something that feels way more resolved, which is the G major chord, which sounds like this. So in the second repetition, we get the following. Which I feel really completes this progression, as we start with this melancholic part and then we end on this more feel-good or happy chord, which is the G major. So I felt good about the chord progression and recorded it into the piano roll using the record notes option over here. And then I started slicing it and I arrived at the following rhythm, which I felt was a bit more groovy than just having these simple sustained chords. And that sounds like this. And what really helps shape the groove here is these little transitional flourishes using the B and D notes over here. So we have this B and D over here. We also use that B as a transition note over here. And at the end, we also used B and E to transition from the final chord to the beginning chord again. And that's when I decided to add a bit more atmosphere to the piano by adding this reverb and delay channel, which makes it a bit more atmospheric and sounds like this. So especially when you stop playing it, you can really hear it carry on for a bit longer through both the reverb and the delay. And then I felt it was time to start arranging it. So I definitely felt the piano should be the beginning of the song. And to add a bit more impact and body to this intro, I'm also adding this Reese bass over here, which is this preset from Silent 1, which sounds like this. And this one simply follows the bass notes, but if you play it together with the piano, it definitely adds a bit of suspense, which we definitely want for the intro. And after 4 bars of piano plus Reese bass, I decided to add the next instrument, which is this strummed acoustic guitar from Contact, which is slowly being opened up through this instance of DJM filter that is being automated over here, which sounds like this. So this strum at the end is actually caused by this subnote trigger over here, which is actually an articulation within this library. And once you hit that on the keyboard, it stops playing the pattern and it actually strums very nicely, which I figured makes for a nice ending to the intro. And after the intro, consisting of piano, Reese bass, and the acoustic guitar, which is discussed, I wanted to do something different, and I felt inspired by Avicii's song Without You, which has a verse that only consists of an acoustic guitar and vocals, and I decided let's do that as well. And after 8 bars of just acoustic guitar, I was like, let's add some energy and movement, which is why I'm introducing a couple of new elements, such as this bass guitar over here from Contact, which is from the Rickenbacker bass library, again, one of my favorites, which sounds like this. So as you can hear and see, we are adding a couple of notes that do not directly follow the chord's bass notes like this B over here or this D, which still work quite well. And through adding these notes, we are basically achieving a more natural and more groovy bass line. And then we're also introducing this kick sample from Avicii's Without You stamp pack, as well as this cashmere snare. And together those elements sound like this. Now I felt this was lacking a bit of body and warmth, which is why I am reintroducing the piano from the intro. And to make sure this is more subtle, I'm applying this low pass filter automation clip, which is making sure that we only get the lower register of the piano and which is cutting away all these higher register frequencies that we don't actually need in this part of the song, because we just want the piano to kind of fill up this missing body and warmth. And that sounds like this. So as this part of the verse is definitely more upbeat and energetic, I figured if we are adding vocals later, which we are, they should definitely be a bit more energetic as well, because I also decided that the next section should be synth only, like no vocals. And that is why in this next section, so after 8 bars of the like more energetic verse part, I'm actually introducing a lead synth, which sounds like this. And to make sure that the introduction of our lead melody is more subtle, I am again using this low pass filter automation clip using one of my favorite free plugins called DJM Filter. And this lead melody actually consists of 2 different instruments. The first is from Serum, which consists of this PWM Juno and subby saw oscillators, which are being layered with this saw sub oscillator. And together that sounds like this, which I felt definitely sounded like Avicii. And to give it a bit more strength and body, I am layering it with this preset from Silent 1, which is the singing saw preset from the MusicCore sample pack. And that one sounds like this, which again sounded very Avicii to me, especially because of this pitch A LFO that is going on, which sounds like this if we overdo it by increasing this gain knob. Now in this section where I am introducing the main lead, I am also again reintroducing the Reese bass from the intro, just again to add that extra suspense. And I'm also reintroducing the exact same piano phrase from the intro using this low pass filter automation clip, again to just build the tension and suspense toward the chorus. And because the lead melody is kind of building in terms of pitch during this section, I figured that in the chorus it should actually play an octave higher to extend on that building. And that sounds like this. Which I felt through its higher notes and therefore higher frequencies definitely improved the energy level compared to the previous section. And to add even more energy to the chorus, I am reintroducing our drums. So we have our kick and our snare. And I'm also introducing this sample from the MusicCore sample pack, which sounds like this in conjunction with our kick and snare. And alongside these drums and our lead melody, we are also reintroducing the bass guitar from the verse, which is now being layered with a sub bass, specifically the deep sub preset in Silent 1. And this just really adds that extra impact and energy in the low end of our chorus. And finally, we're also again using our piano, which was already building through this low pass filter automation clip in the previous section and is now being opened up all the way again, just like it was in the intro. And together with the bass, the lead, and the drums, that sounds like this. So I really liked this, but I still felt that this section as well as the other sections could be made a bit more interesting, and that is why I started to add effect samples. For example, we're using this sweep and exhaust sample from the Without You stems from the Avicii stem pack, which sounds like this. So then another sample I'm adding is this fill from the Cashmere pack, or specifically a part of this fill, because the full fill sounds like this. But I'm only using this part. And I'm using this one before the chorus as well as in some of the other sections just to improve the transitions. Then speaking of transitions, I am also adding this scary violin effect sample from the Cashmere pack at the end of some of our sections. And this really just adds a bit of tonal atmosphere and ambience, and also kind of acts as a transition tool. Then I'm also using some impact samples, again coming from Avicii's Without You stem pack, which sound like this. And finally, to add extra suspense and hype throughout the pre-chorus, I'm also using this sweep from the Cashmere pack. So I think we've now covered all of the production elements inside this session, and that's also the point where I figured we need some vocals. However, I can't really sing, and that is when I figured AI might be a cool solution here. So I started thinking about and humming some vocal melodies until I came up with some melodies that I felt quite good about, and then actually started writing some lyrics around this, and that resulted in the following verse and chorus sections for a song called Bones. So I decided to record that and to put some autotune and compression on it, and that sounds like this. Many days have passed me by, wondering I've been living low. Now, this is definitely cringy to hear because I can't really sing and there's quite a bit of autotune on this, but the idea was to convert this to some actual singer. And that's when I came across this site called lalals.com through this AI vocal video by MHA, who has a great channel, by the way. And this website, who are, by the way, not sponsoring me, has a bunch of artists that you can simply select and convert your vocals to. So I was scrolling through these artists looking for someone who might collaborate with Avicii. And that is when I stumbled upon this guy over here, Chris Martin, the lead singer from Coldplay, who has collaborated with Avicii on both Heaven, A Sky Full of Stars, and I think a couple of other songs. So I decided to open that and convert my vocals to Chris Martin.
Many days have passed me by, wondering I've been living low.
And while I definitely think this doesn't sound super amazing, I do think it sounds better than my own voice, which is why I do think AI tools like this can be a cool way to hear what your voice might sound like through somebody else, even though you should definitely be careful with this. Like, I would definitely not release this using the name Chris Martin or like release it at all, but it's just like for fun and for creative purposes. So then I dragged in our Chris Martin vocals, and with that we actually arrive at the final result of this Avicii song. Now, before we listen to the final result, I'd like to encourage you to get active in the comments below by letting me know which artists you'd like me to explore in the future. And also, if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and consider subscribing to become part of our community of musicians and music lovers. And with that said, I'd like to thank you for watching, and let's now listen to the final result of our Avicii song featuring AI Chris Martin.
Many days have passed me by, wondering I've been living low. And in the silence of the night, I catch a glimpse of hope that tells me where to go. I can feel it coming, I can feel it in my bones. I won't fear what's yet to stop me, even if it sticks and stones.